In this video, we're talking about how to stay hydrated. Now, a lot of people think that means drinking enough water, and that's part of it, but it's not everything. This is a very fast discussion, but it's essential. So, there are a couple of things that you'll want to take notes on. And we gave you space on page 104 of your playbook, so please grab it and get ready to write. First, let's clarify what we mean by hydration. To us, it's taking in enough water and electrolytes. You've probably heard of electrolytes, but might not be sure what they actually are. Basically, electrolytes are a category of minerals. There are 7 electrolytes, and you're already very familiar with the top 3 because you hear about them all the time: sodium, potassium, and calcium. You can do more research if you want and learn about those other ones, but we want to keep it simple because it really can be simple for you. The reason why we want to actually take in enough electrolytes is because they help make sure that your cells have enough water to be able to function properly. And when your cells aren't getting enough water, you're taking short-term risk as well as long-term risk. Short term, your physical performance will drop. So when you actually want to move your body and use your strength, you may find that you're dizzy, tired, slow, and maybe even get some muscle cramps. Dehydration can make things harder on your joints and muscles, and that can actually drain you of motivation and energy to move your body. Dehydration also makes your blood thicker because there's literally less water in you. And so that means that your heart has to work so much harder to be able to pump your blood. If you have a reason to be concerned about your blood pressure, then it should be a very high priority for you to stay hydrated. If you're regularly dehydrated, that can cause problems for your kidneys and your digestion. And basically, that means that it makes it harder for you to process and remove waste from your body. And when you can't remove waste or toxins from your body, you don't feel or perform as good as you could. And research shows that dehydration also slows down how fast you think. So you may find that it's harder to react quickly and make good decisions or solve problems when you're dehydrated. All this to say, it's extremely important to stay hydrated. So let's talk about the very simple ways that you can do this. All right, first, your goal should be every day to drink a certain number of ounces of water. And you can calculate approximately how many ounces of water your body needs by dividing your body's weight by 2. So for example, if you weigh 150 pounds, you divide 150 by 2, and that gives you 75. So your goal would be to drink 75 ounces of water daily. And please pause the video now and be able to take a moment to calculate how many ounces of water you should be drinking by dividing your weight by 2. And you also want to keep in mind that depending on the day, like if you trained hard or you sweat a lot because it's hot, it's possible that you may need more water than that. The good news is that it's extremely rare and unlikely that you could actually drink too much water, especially if you're in balance with your electrolytes, like we'll be discussing in a moment. The second thing that you can do is get a dedicated water bottle for training sessions. If you invest time and energy finding a special water bottle, you're a lot more likely to actually bring it with you every time that you train, and that will make it very easy to ensure that you're taking in your number of ounces. Now, I've heard a lot of reasons why people don't drink water while they exercise. They don't want to have to carry a water bottle. They don't want to have to pee or interrupt their training. They don't want to feel heavy or bloated. Maybe they don't even feel thirsty. Or I've even heard that they don't like the taste of water. And I get it. There's a lot of reasons that your mind can engineer that can sound pretty convincing. But the bottom line is that when you move your body, you're asking it to show up for you. And you want your body to bring its best, right? So the thing that you have to remember is that hydration is performance. Without water, your muscles tire faster and your focus and energy levels drop significantly. So then it's really important to actually stay ahead of dehydration, because by the time that you notice that you're thirsty, that means that you're already dehydrated. You don't want to wait until you're thirsty. And fortunately, we actually have 3 pointers for you to be able to stay ahead of dehydration. First, sip and don't chug. This will actually help you avoid feeling bloated and heavy from suddenly taking in a lot of water, and it will also minimize interruptions to your training because you won't need to go to the bathroom as frequently. Second, flavor it with lemon, mint, or cucumber if you really can't stand the taste of water, because that will actually give it that better taste. But you also may want to explore new options for water filters at your home, because sometimes what you dislike is actually the chemicals that have been added, like chlorine, or even just the natural minerals that might be in your tap water. And I get it, those aren't always pleasant taste, and I have my own preferences personally. What you may not realize is that all water doesn't taste the same. So if you really can't tolerate the flavor of water, then it is worth exploring why that is and what your water tastes like after it's been filtered by different products. And the whole point is, disliking water as an entire category really isn't an option. You're human and you need water. So get curious and figure out how to adapt so that your body can get the fuel that it needs. And third, take in enough electrolytes. And there are a few ways to do this. First, eat whole foods, because the reality is that if you aren't eating whole foods the way that we recommend, specifically in phase 2 nourishment navigation, you're probably taking in pretty good amounts of fruits and vegetables and protein sources that naturally contain electrolytes. And second, use Himalayan sea salt because it's also a source of electrolytes. Personally, I like putting it on my eggs at breakfast and the protein that I'm eating for dinner, and I also put it in the water when I'm making pasta and rice. And when I need extra support, like if I'm sweating a lot, either because the weather's really hot outside or because I trained really hard, then I'll also use a pinch of Himalayan sea salt in my hand like this, and I'll just knock it back with about 4 ounces of water. The third thing that you can do is take 1 to 3 ounces of pickle juice. And as a former athlete, I swear by this. Pickle juice works incredibly well to prevent and quickly recover from muscle cramping because it has such a high sodium content in a liquid form. In fact, at one of the gyms that I used to go to, there was a doctor that I got to know, and he asked me how I was able to regularly train so hard because he dealt with such frequent muscle cramps. And I noticed that he was drinking a lot of water, but it was possible his electrolyte balance was actually off. So I told him to start taking a shot of pickle juice before he trained. He was kind of surprised, but he followed my recommendation. And when I saw him maybe 2 weeks later, he said how effective the pickle juice was and what a difference it was making. So sometimes you might just need to pour out some pickle juice and knock it back. And fourth, compensate for added sugar, alcohol, and caffeine. Because when you take in those things, they can throw off the balance of hydration and electrolytes in your system. Specifically with sugar, it requires water to be digested. So sugar actually pulls water out of your cells in order to be processed. And this means if you're enjoying a sugary dessert or snack, definitely make sure that you actually compensate by having an extra glass of water with it. And both alcohol and caffeine make you pee a lot. So that means that you're both losing water and your electrolytes generally at the same time. So again, if you're enjoying either an alcoholic or caffeinated beverage, we encourage you to compensate by having a glass of water as well. All right, and that's it, my friends. You now understand what it means to stay hydrated and keep your electrolytes balanced. And you've discovered our best practices to set you up for having more energy and endurance, not just when you train, but also during your everyday activities. Water up.